Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Talking TV with my mum, the weekly Geek-Dom review Roundup podcast discussion show where we talk about lots of geek/genre TV shows and we give our take on them, as well as doing a complete sort of summary and roundup of what happened in that particular episode, peppered with any bits of news and also your comments if you leave them. So thank you very much for joining us again. This week we have only 4 programmes to discuss because several things have ended, so it's going to be slightly shorter. And this week we'll be talking about Fear the Walking Dead, Legion, the second episode of Season 3 of Stranger Things, and finally we'll be finishing up with the second part of the 2-parter Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode for Season 6. Along the way, like I said, we'll also mention in a moment your comments and I've got some bits of news that have started coming out because of San Diego Comic-Con, so we're going to go over them. If you enjoy the podcast, please can you hit the like button and let us know that you enjoy it, because that's great and that's good feedback for us. And in terms of feedback, if you can also leave your comments down below, and if there's anything there that's to do with what we're talking about, then we'll read them out and we'll discuss them as we're going to do in a moment. So feel free to leave comments. We always love that engagement from you. And also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please subscribe. That will really, really help me, because the bigger my numbers grow, the more the algorithm of YouTube will pay attention to me, and the more people will get exposed to this podcast and to the channel in general. There is also my description box, and in there you will find the timestamps for all the particular programs that we're going to be discussing. We would like you to listen to the whole thing, but if you want to jump to particular sections, then you've got the option to. And also in the description box is the link to my Twitter, so you can come and follow and chat to me on there and continue the conversation, and also my donation medium. So if you feel generous enough to help support me, help support the channel, help support the podcast, then you can do. I've got Patreon and I've got Ko-fi, and they come with various rewards and recognition for your tribute to the geekdom. Obviously, you're under no obligation to do so, but if you do so, then I will be extremely grateful. That's all the housekeeping, so I will go ahead and welcome my co-host. So, are you there, Geek Mom?
Yeah, I'm here. With my new name.
With your new name, courtesy of who is Skippy.
Yep.
So, you're doing all right?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Good, please.
Enjoyed the programmes again this week.
Yeah, and please.
Last week's podcast, awesome as usual.
Yeah, it was a lot better last week because we didn't have any weird sound issues or anything.
Didn't have
like
any
that.
robots in it.
No, not at all. Did you like what I did with the thumbnail image?
Yes.
Because I thought I was quite clever there, because I got the picture, obviously, of Stranger Things, and then I put the title using a similar font and colour scheme as they actually have the Stranger Things logo to sort of put on the front of there. I was quite pleased with myself after that. I thought, yeah, that looks quite good. I'm quite impressed with what I did there.
Yeah, I do like the pictures that you put on for each section as well. They're good.
Thank you.
You sort of like visualise the programme then by looking at it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Straight off the bat, so the first thing we'll just talk about quickly is there have been people that have mentioned previously about us moving the podcast, or well, not moving, but including it in other mediums, so putting it as an audio podcast as well as the one that's on this channel. We've been looking into that, haven't we? We've been doing a little bit of investigation and looking how we go about doing it. It's still a work in progress, but the work has begun. So hopefully it won't be too long until we actually make that a reality. And you've got some homework to do, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm going to get on that this afternoon for my day off. And tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we can sort out for next week.
Yeah, so hopefully, in the not too distant future, we'll be able to bring this to you, not just as a visual, well, kind of visual podcast, but also you'll be able to listen to it on various podcast platforms. So that was just an update for those that are interested in that, to know that we are working on that. First thing we'll do then, Mum, is we'll dig into a few of the comments that we received. Firstly, actually, I want to throw back to not last week's, but the week before's podcast, because we got a new comment on one of the previous podcasts, and this was the one with the Good Omens finale.
Okay.
And this was from Jen, who goes under the name J-Rex Gaming, and I would I would suggest people go and check out, if you like horror games and things, then she does quite a lot of horror games, and I think she's quite an underappreciated YouTuber. She's got quite a small channel, and I think she deserves some bigger numbers than she has. So if you like horror gaming, go and check out her
Well,
channel.
I might check that out then.
So she's really nice. She's got a really nice voice, like an easy to listen to voice as well. So she left a comment and she said, "I just have to say, Good Omens has been one of my favourite shows. I couldn't stop watching it. I was sad when it was over. I'm glad that there was a set number of episodes, though, because they wrapped everything up. But on the other side, I wanted more. Great podcast." So that was a nice little comment there, just sort of showing her appreciation for one of the shows that we also really loved. So that was quite a nice little comment there.
That's cool.
Yeah. So in terms of last week's podcast, Will has returned.
Yay! Welcome back, Will.
So, and he left this from there because Will and his buddy Josh, who both have separate channels, have now recently launched a collaboration channel called 2-Bit Gaming, where they do a mixture of discussions. They do little one-off let's play, like challenge things and stuff like that. They're going to do some like live streaming stuff in the future and things, but they've got big plans for it, but they're just sort of getting it off the ground. So he left a comment from that channel. Right, so this is a bit of a wordy one.
Yes.
So he says, "I'm so sorry, I feel awful, but it's true. I have to watch Fear the Walking Dead like I promised. Accept my apologies. I'm going to binge watch it though." Another sad but true confession. I've seen season 1 of Stranger Things, then I watched 2 episodes of season 2, and I started watching Black Mirror, so I sort of put it on the back burner.
Sidetracked.
From what people have said though, season 2 was not the best, but this new season is meant to be immense. So I'll get back to it. Question for you and lovely Mumsy. Thoughts on season... It was so funny, actually, just a sidebar. When I read that lovely Mumsy, the thing that popped into my head was, you know, when Richard O'Brien used to do the Crystal Maze?
Oh, yeah.
That's what he used to call his mum, Mumsy, didn't he?
Yeah.
Made me think of that.
Oh, dear.
So he said, your thoughts on season 2, is it worth a watch? I've given my answer, so before I give my answer, because I replied to him in the comment, what do you say to that? Is it worth watching season 2 of Stranger Things?
Yes, because I watched all of them, because obviously before we started talking about season 3, I went back from 1 to 2.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it definitely is.
Yeah, I agree.
The first one was really good, and the second one really, I think it was really good.
I mean, what I said to him, my response, I said, I defo recommend watching season 2, as there's some key story and character development that happens, and it will mean that you have more investment going into season 3, as there's a big direct link.
Definitely, yeah. I definitely agree. Yeah. It's definitely, you have to watch 2 as well. Yeah, you can't just go 1, 3.
Yeah.
Because it'd be really confusing as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's why I did a recap, because I watched the first episode and went, not quite sure what happened on season 2.
Yeah.
Instead of just watching season 2 end, I watched all of it again. And it just made so much more sense going into season 3 then.
Yeah.
So yes, I definitely will.
Yeah, definitely will.
That's from Mumsy.
Okay. So, that's Will's question. And then now we've got the return of our faithful friend. Who is Skippy?
Hey!
So, who is Skippy said, another great video, Geek-Dom and Geek-Mom. And then he said, here's a Skippy question straight from the pouch.
Oh, here we go.
This is quite a straightforward one, to be fair.
Okay.
If you could be any character on Lucifer, who would you be?
Me, I'd be Maze.
See, that was my answer as well. That was exactly my answer, because when I thought about it, when I read the question, and I was like, straight away, I went Maze. Because I thought, Lucifer, you kind of go, Lucifer's the obvious, because Lucifer is the main character, you know, Lucifer's got all these powers and this, that, and the other, and he's suave, and he's sophisticated, and he's funny, but Maze is just awesome. I mean, she's beautiful, she's a complete badass, and she doesn't take any crap from anybody.
Well, I relate to her, only the bit I haven't got the beautiful bit. I'm a badass and I don't take no crap either, so she's a bit like me, but she's got more beauty than me and better body. What's your reason you want to be a woman?
Well, it's more, Yes, yeah. Shush.
Fantasy of yours.
No, I like her just in general. Her attitude, her personality, and I like the fact that she is a complete badass. She can handle herself really well. She's expert, at various martial arts and things like that. And she's also got like a good sort of sense of humor. And there's an innocence to her that goes alongside her grrr sort of nature.
And she's got a good heart at the bottom of it all as well.
Yeah, which is quite funny to say, given that she's a demon, that she's got a good
Just
heart.
like me, you see.
Yes, you're a
I'm
demon
a
and you've got a
dragon.
good heart.
I'm a dragon, and I'm the same. So why? What? Who did you think I'd pick then?
I don't know. I wasn't sure who you would say, but I was like, first off when I thought Maze, and then you were like Maze. Oh, we got the same one.
We're so alike, aren't we?
I know.
It's just strange. Oh dear.
So now
There you go.
I would then ask that question back to you, Skippy. So you can leave that in the comment on this podcast. Is who would you be?
Yeah.
Which character would you pick? And if you say Maze as well, then
we're triplets.
Yeah. So yes.
Yeah, interested.
So,
yeah, we want to know who you'd like to be. Yeah.
They are.
Good question.
That was a good question. So yeah, so they are the highlighted comments from last week's podcast. So yeah, so go ahead, please leave your comments. Not just because it's good, like engagement and good feedback for the channel and for us, but also things like this. These little questions or these little observations, or just you sharing your love of the programs that we're talking about. It's nice to know that there are these other geeks out there in the world, which we know there are many of, and there are millions of people that love these programs. And if some of you are watching and listening to our podcast, we'd love to to engage with you and see you sharing this love of this sort of fandom with us.
Yeah. And we get to know you a bit better, and you get to know us a bit better.
Exactly, yeah.
We're not just a voice on the other end of your headphones.
Yeah, exactly. Right, okay, so a couple of things now then. Moving on to the news. So the first thing is that it will be from now, so not this podcast obviously, and not the next two. So in 3 podcast time, we will have another show to add back into the reviews. Because on the 4th of August, Preacher returns.
Yes.
So we have the date now. So 4th of August, and by all accounts, we'll have a bit of a bumper episode that week because I think it's a double episode. So we'll have a double episode of Preacher to talk about along with everything else. So yeah, okay. So that was the first thing. So that's in relation to the show directly. The Expanse season 4. So we don't have a date yet. It's this year, but we don't know when this year. But they've started showing off images and a bit of plot information for season 4. So the fact that they've started doing that would say to me that a release date is quite imminent.
Yes. Yay!
So that's something else on the horizon. So that's another thing to look out for. The other bit of news was to do with the Batwoman show that is going to be coming to go alongside the other Arrowverse programs. They showed off a preview of the pilot episode at Comic-Con the other day, and apparently it went down okay. It was said, it is very Arrowverse, you can tell it's made by the same people and things like that. And that is going to be coming in October. So
October's going to be busy.
Yeah. So that's going to launch in October. So that's those 3 shows. Then there's news about another show, and I was a bit sad, but also interestingly, it confirms what both you and Zoe have said, in that they made the announcement that season 7 that starts next year of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will be the last.
That's it. They're going to definitely finish it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but if they marry certain things up, it won't matter, because if they'd ended it like we thought after last season, it would have been rubbish, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So I think now, 2 more this season and next season. Everything good comes to an end, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And knowing S.H.I.E.L.D., as they write it so good, it's going to be a good ending anyway. So sad, but yeah, we've got so many other things popping up here all over the place. So yeah, cool. Yay!
So yeah, so that's been, so we now have an official ending for when that's all going to sort of wrap up. And it also means now that they can start building towards the end of everything, which is what, like I said, you and Zoe both sort of speculated that it seemed like they were starting to, tie things together. They were starting to end certain storylines and things, and it obviously is the case now.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's that. Now another thing is a new thing that's going to be coming in the not too distant future. We don't have a date or anything because it's only just started. They're only starting work on it now and stuff, so it'll probably be next year. But Neil Gaiman.
Yes, so off of the Good Omens thing.
Yeah, off of Good Omens and off of American Gods and off of Lucifer.
Okay.
So Neil Gaiman is the creator behind all of these things. Neil Gaiman had and still has a comic book series called The Sandman. And The Sandman is where we got Lucifer. Lucifer came from there originally. And also the Sandman series is also tied in with John Constantine. So it's connected to all these different elements. The Sandman is going to be adapted into a Netflix show. So they are currently working on that. And that's going to be really cool because as we've seen, obviously, you have the magic and the supernatural element with Constantine. You've got the actual devil and the concept of, like, celestial beings with Lucifer. The Sandman also deals with other things that are seen as concepts, like time, eternity, things like that.
Oh.
And in the Sandman universe, those are actual beings. So time is like a creature. Eternity is like a person, is like a creature.
Yeah,
so,
it's a thing rather than just a...
So rather than just being a concept, they are actually personified. And it's all related to that. And obviously the Sandman is to do with the Sandman, as in dreams and the dream world.
The Sandman.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Give me a dream.
So
bom, 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 bom.
the fact that they're making that, it's quite ambitious, and I imagine it's going to be very fantastical, and the imagery is going to be great, and the special effects and things like that. So although that's far down the line, that's not going to be until next year at some point. It's something that is starting to be developed and could prove to be a very interesting series. So those of us that have enjoyed the adaptations of Neil Gaiman's work so far, it will definitely be one to keep an eye out for.
Brilliant. Yay.
So yeah, so that's an interesting little bit. The other thing, this is a bit sad, Titans. So the Netflix DC show Titans has been, its filming of its second season has been put on hold. Okay. And the reason being is because a crew member on the show was killed in an accident.
Oh.
So there was a rehearsal shoot at a special effects facility in Toronto. This incident happened. The incident took place on Thursday when a piece of car used for the special effect in this scene broke and struck this guy.
Oh,
and
wow.
As a result, and unfortunately it killed him. So as a result, the production of Titan Season 2 has been shut down for the time being. So that means that it's going to be a delay.
Well, I'll have to have an investigation and stuff, maybe, into what happened.
So that, I'm not sure.
Safety aspects and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect its time frame, because I imagine that they were probably aiming for October again, like when the first season of Titans aired. So maybe they were trying, like the Arrowverse does, they try and keep it on the same point every year that the series returns.
Yeah.
They were maybe looking at doing the same. So whether this will have a major impact on that returning, whether it will be pushed back until much later in the year or even the beginning of the following year, I don't know. But that's a bit of news related to these sort of TV shows that we watch. So I thought I'd just sort of throw that into the mix as well. That news has just come out. So that's a bit of a sad one, but it's, just heads up. I suppose people that are, waiting for that, so, when's Titan Season 2 going to come on, and why is it taking so long? Well, now you know why it may end up taking longer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's also been talk that I haven't actually dug into it properly yet, because it's not an article, it's actually just a video, with some of the cast of both The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead, talking about the shows merging. Now, this could just be in reference to the fact that they've started low-key referencing things in relation, well, like from The Walking Dead, they've started low-key referencing them in Fear the Walking Dead, and by having the crossovers with, like, Morgan and Dwight, they could be talking about that, or it could be that there's more sort of timeline merging and more story merging to come in the future.
Well, I did tell you there'd be an announcement, didn't I? So maybe that's what that was to do with.
Maybe. But like I said, because it's only, at the moment, I've only seen video of it and not an actual readable article. I haven't had the chance to just sort of like skim read over it to bring you the full news, but that's a thing. So that might prove to be more, or it might just prove to be them talking about how they've recently added these little elements in.
Okay.
And another little bit, just this is more for I mean, I know you are, but I'm not sure how excited you are about this particular program, but I mean, I know I am, and a lot of people will be, is the new Star Trek show, Picard, which is starring Patrick Stewart, which is the sort of follow-up to his playing Jean-Luc Picard in the Star Trek The Next Generation series. They have mentioned that apparently there are going to be cameos from other characters from the Star Trek Next Generation cast in this Picard series. They're still hammering out all the specifics and things like that, but they've said that, you know, it's looking likely that we're going to see some other returning characters from that era of Star Trek television.
I never watched that, so I don't know. Never watched I was always the fan of the old school, and then the films that came out, I like them, and then obviously the new one that we've been watching, Discovery.
Yeah.
But I never watched Star Trek The Next Generation. I know of it, but I didn't actually ever watch it.
Yeah. See, whereas I did, and I'm quite looking forward to this Picard series, so the fact that they're going to be potentially bringing in other cast members from that era is quite cool. So, so that's another thing as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's all the news for this week. I'm sure that between now and next Friday, when we record again, they'll have announced some other bits and pieces at Comic-Con. So anything else that's relevant to the shows that we watch and the shows that we cover or will cover in the future, we will bring up then.
Yeah, cool.
It just means that you guys don't have to go searching for this news online because I've just brought it to you.
Now you have to rattle your newspaper and say, that's the end of that.
Yes. And now, here's Geek Mom with the weather. Oh dear. Right, okay, so that's everything. That's all the beginning stuff. So our intro is over. So now we will get stuck into the actual meat of the podcast. And we will kick off with the episode of Fear the Walking Dead, which was called Still Standing. And this is episode 7. So I've been talking for a bit, so you can do some now.
Right then. Okay, so at the end of the last episode, we had Morgan heading towards Charlie and Strand, whose hot air balloon had come down in a field in the contaminated area. And we had Alicia setting off to the camp where the children had gone back to.
Yep.
So we started with her. She got to where the camp was, and the only way in was to break some of these gate barricades kids had made up with the walkers to get to them. She got so far, and I think she met up with Dylan, the little boy.
That was weird, the way he just appeared.
That was really weird.
Like,
I know, they were all around him, and he's just like, little boy, like, stood there.
Looking at her, just like, hello, what are you doing here?
So he took her back to the camp, and the girl Annie wasn't happy at all, was she? It's like, why are you bothering? Why are you doing this? Because she kept saying, oh, you don't want to be here. And she took her weapon off her, didn't she?
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't that the one she got after Nick died?
Yeah.
And because she said, what is this supposed to be? And she said, oh, there's the story behind it or something.
Yeah, that's right.
So she wasn't happy, and because of it, she goes, now you broke those, we've got to go repair the gates because they'll get into the camp. So the girl and I don't know what his name is, the boy that went with her, the older boy. But Annie went off to try and fix the gates. And then something happened where they'd broken loose, they couldn't control them.
Yeah.
So she had to go back to the camp. So we had that little bit at the beginning. So then meanwhile we had Strand and Charlie in the field.
Yeah.
Making a wall out of the balloon.
That was really clever.
That was clever, yeah. He dragged these really heavy propellers. So those propellers are the ones that fell off their plane that crashed the original one at the beginning then.
Yes.
So they'd gone to retrieve them. So he was dragging them through, and then they put a barricade with a balloon, and they said, well, it'll hold for a while.
Yeah.
So they were there. Morgan was on the phone with them saying, have you touched any of them? Don't touch them.
Don't
We
kill
don't know if
them.
they're the contaminated, because they might be the contaminated one. And he tried to get hold of Grace to say that, can we use... Oh, she had previously asked for their... Was that last week she asked for the generator?
Yeah, when she asked for the generator because of the
So he said, we need your truck. And she was going, I'm busy, I've got to get this done. And she told him about another, a place with some houses, houses, shacks or whatever. You might be able to find something you can use. And he managed to find a is it hazmat they call it?
Hazmat.
Hazmat.
Yeah.
I didn't remember if it's haz or hash.
Yeah, because it's like an abbreviated version of hazardous material suit.
Oh yeah, hazmat, of course it is. I knew it was something like that. So obviously he needed one of those in order to get through the area without himself getting injured. So he managed to get to Strand and Charlie, didn't he?
Yeah.
They were getting close. They said, how long will it hold? He goes, I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead.
Yeah, because you had that bit, didn't you, where they were behind this like curtain, effectively, that they'd made, and all the zombies are all pushing up against it, and there's more and more of them pushing up against it and pushing through it, and then you just heard all the noises and the wet sort of clunk sort of sounds and things. And they all just started falling down, and it's like one of them get stabbed in the head that it sort of squished up against the sheeting, and then fell down, and then it was like, then there was Morgan.
To save the day.
Yeah.
So what he did is he contacted that Grace again, didn't he? And she had said that the generator had overheated, she's having trouble with it. Don't worry about me. And so he told Strand and Charlie to use the truck he'd got from this town or this house or whatever, to take the propellers back to the place to get the plane fixed. And then he said, I've got something else to do, and he wandered off, didn't he? So that was that. He then ended up meeting up with Grace, didn't he? Because he was in the suit, so he's like, I'm all right, I'm safe.
Yeah. And that's what he had a conversation with her about, like, not giving up, and talking about, he did his Morgan thing where he sort of was like, when I was like this, I was like you, and I went down this path, and I lost myself for a long time. He's like saying all this stuff to her about his past and where he went, and he was in a dark place, but then he came back, and about, you've got to not give up, and you've got to live and try and live, and all of this stuff. It was one of those sort of inspirational speech moments.
He convinced her, once she'd done what she was doing, she needed to leave and get away like everyone else.
Yeah.
So then we had a very small snippet where they were trying to fix the plane, and they realised the plane, after they tried it the first time, had run out of fuel. See, now this is where the bit that was nonsensical to you the other week came in quite handy, because Al said, I know where there's some fuel.
Yeah, and she took June, didn't she? Yeah.
So June went with her. She didn't tell her everything. June didn't prod her for information, because she didn't say, who was this woman then? Where is she now? Or that she went off with the helicopter.
Yeah.
It was interesting when she had to share the fact that she'd met somebody and felt feelings for somebody that she never thought she would in the kind of surroundings they live in.
Yeah.
And June sort of said about the same sort of thing with John. So in a way, although it was only a little bit, if she hadn't had that, we hadn't seen that, how would she have said, I know, well, there's some fuel. So even though they drew it out of the whole episode, it was important. Like I told you before, it married it up. So that was important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we also had Dory and Dwight still looking for Sherry, and then they found the truck wasn't working, was it?
It ran out of gas.
Yeah. And he was going, we've got to get back. We haven't got time. And then he finally told Dwight the truth and gave him the letter.
Because I think he was concerned that they might, like you said, run out of time before this meltdown happened. So it was like, I need to be honest with him about, about what I found and stuff.
Well, it was sweet, because he's like, he still wants to find her, but I want to get you back to June first, he said.
Yeah.
So basically he wants to get them back, and he's thinking, well, I'm not going to stay with you after I do that. I'm going to still look for her, because do I go down this route or that route? Which one? He still wants to look for her. So he may change his mind when he gets back, but he's still thinking, as long as I get you back safe, because you need to be back to your woman, then I may carry on my task of looking for her.
Well,
that was quite sweet.
That thing as well, isn't it? Of like, you were kind enough to help me, and put yourself out, like, away from what your friends are all doing to do this separate thing with me. So the least I can do in return is kind of return the favour of like getting you back to your people.
Yeah. Then we went back to the camp where the kids were.
Where they're like, I will say quickly, just going back to what their camp, it made me think of like Peter Pan or something with the Lost Boys, where it was like this ramshackled house
well, they've
built
gone from,
like...
Yeah, they've gone from the Lord of the Flies now to the Lost Boys, haven't they?
It was very Lost Boys. Like, especially that bit, you know, when she first came in through the gates and went across the bridge, and you had this, like, weird, like, ramshackly house that they'd obviously cobbled together, and the main girl, what's her name again? The older girl? Annie, yeah, it stood on the bridge, like, sort of confronting her, and then you see all the kids, like, in the background, all popping their heads around various parts of this little house. And it just came across to me very Lost Boys-esque.
Yeah. Well, basically, they realised the growlers, as they called them, were getting too close.
Mm-hmm.
They were breaking. They were not trying to break through the gate they made.
Well, they turned into like a herd, didn't they? And sort of converged on the gate.
Because they escaped. Yeah, because they got out of the gates that they'd made. They then were all sort of converging, and even though they had like growlers on the outside that they'd hooked up, they were still pushing the gate. Mm-hmm. So she told them they needed to leave. So she gave her a weapon back, didn't she?
Yeah.
So they were also like they didn't know what to do, and then the kids, I don't know if it's Dylan or the older boy, said, "Look, we need to go." So they also were getting away out the back of the hut while she said, "I'll fend them off." Mm-hmm. Oh, that was awful.
Yes.
Because she was just doing her normal thing like she does, reckless. Let's kill the shit out of them. But she was killing the ones with the pendants on as well, wasn't she?
Yeah, and she got splashed in the face with blood, didn't she?
She was absolutely covered in it, the stuff. So the kids got away, and she's like still doing this, and then she started walking and bringing them away from the camp, didn't she, to make sure the kids got away? Yeah. So then we get Morgan, because he'd got Grace in the car. New Strand was on his way back, and she's going, "You're all right," and she's making out she's all right, but she's thinking, "Well, I can't go back. Yeah. I'm contaminated now." And I said, "Oh no!" My first thought was like another character getting killed off.
Yeah, another one of that original family.
The last member of the family is going to be. Well, we don't know. Still don't know. Yeah. We still don't know. No. So anyway, she's saying, and she's talking to him, and he said, "So where are you?" And then she like cut off the walkie, didn't she? Yeah. And she's like, we had all these walkers following her. I thought, so everyone, John and Dwight are on their way back. Yeah. Isha's not there, so everyone's there at the moment. So obviously on the way back to the camp, the siren went off at the power plant, didn't it?
Signalling the beginning of the meltdown.
Yeah. So I thought, it's gonna blow.
Yes.
It's like, oh.
So they gave us a real big sort of cliffhangery moment. Yeah. So now the next one, the 8th episode, is, by the looks of things, that might be the mid-season finale. So for them to build into this cliffhangery moment going into the mid-season finale episode, then obviously I imagine they're going to ramp up the tension and the danger of these situations in that episode, leaving us on a real big like, oh my god, until it comes back.
Yeah. And like I say, they don't know where she is, so they have no. I mean, obviously they know roughly where she is because they knew where she went. Yeah. But are they going to be able to save her? Is she going to be all right? It's like, oh. It's like, that was quite exciting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it definitely was a better episode than it has been over the last couple of weeks. It picked up again in terms of the stakes and the action and the adventure and excitement and the danger. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, so that's that one.
But yeah, so it was quite horrifying in a way. And talking about horrifying, that brings us on nicely to the very bizarre, very creepy, very horror-tinged episode of Legion, which was...
Oh, my days.
Chapter 23 was the name of this one. And yeah, this was... Now, we've seen in the past, there have been a couple of these throughout the past couple of seasons of Legion, where they do an episode that is very much like a horror episode in tone. Because they did it, when we first got introduced to the Shadow King, and it was that big... When he was the big, creepy, blobby thing... stalking David, and that one that time, I think, was it in season 1 where it was the whole thing in the bedroom and it was like they were all trapped in there and you had like the people stuck in the walls and all of this kind of stuff, and it was like really horror themed. And this was another one of those ones that was very unsettling, and very much the tone of it from the music and everything was very horror.
It was very strange.
And yeah, I mean, so the beginning of this, so you basically have these odd little scenes where you're sort of, you're a bit confused about what's going on, because it started with Carrie,
It was
didn't
in the
it?
plane. It was in the plane.
Oh, and it
And
was
the clone,
the
mustachios and Ptolemy, or what his name is.
Ptolemy, yes, that's right. And they were doing like whatever they do, computerized like analysis and stuff, and talking about the things that they were computing were not working properly, and that they were losing things. And Carrie came in, the girl Carrie,
Yeah.
and she was talking about the fact that where was
She's missing the
other
other Carrie.
yeah, and where was he? And she was worried about him and things like that. And then things sort of jumped, like in the middle of her having a conversation, and then everyone was like dead or dying, and she was like kneeling on the floor holding Ptolemy, and it's like, wait, what just happened? And then she was like,
Then it seemed to happen.
what just happened?
And then it all happened again.
Yeah. And then it just basically kept jumping, and it was like, she was really, what was weird as well was that she was aware that she was sort of jumping from place to place, but she didn't know how she was jumping from place to place. And like, wait a minute, I was just here, or I just said, and then she was in the room with Sid, and Sid said something to her, and then she went, what? And then she said, what you just said? And she was like, what do you mean? I didn't just say anything. Like, why am I here? What did I just say? And then Sid was sat at a desk, and there was an apple, and she said, you said about time, and about how they, like, Ptolemy and have to look into time, and that time is broken. And she went,
yeah.
When did I say that? You just said it just now. Did I? Yeah.
And the apple started rotting.
And then they both looked at the apple, and it suddenly went from being a nice, crisp, crunchy apple to gradually rotting and decaying. And they both looked at each other of like, something is terribly wrong here.
And then we jumped to the commune, didn't we? And we had all this weird hopscotch game and singing, and somebody's singing. And then we had Lenny and her pregnant virgin woman,
Sat
which
on
is
the
obviously her
grass.
girlfriend.
Yeah, and she was like stroking
going
her
about
hair and
naming the baby. Don't name the baby a fish name. She goes, what do you mean? She goes, like salmon. She goes, that's not a fish name, that's a colour.
That's a colour. And she's like, you're so clever. You're so intelligent, babe, and all this stuff. It's like, oh my God.
But Lenny was talking about she wanted to leave the place, didn't she? She was going, we need to leave, get away from this.
Yeah.
You and me, let's get away. Don't want to be here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had they were sitting and chatting, and then all of a sudden David and Switch landed from nowhere on the grass. But they just come through the time travel, hadn't they?
Yeah, it was one of those weird time doors. And this was clearly after the events of the last one, because he was then going, we have to go back. We have to warn her.
And then they did it again, and then they kept coming again and again and again. And then she said, no, we can't do it anymore.
Yeah, because like the whole
She's
thing with her
like,
tooth. Because like Lenny looked at her and sort of went, hey, babe, you've got a little something on your chin there. And then it was because of her tooth. And then they jumped again, but they were still having the same, not the same, they weren't repeating the conversation. Well, David was, but she wasn't. And Lenny was like, hey, babe, you've got a little something on your chin there. And it's like, what's going on? It's like a weird loop of like time is happening here. And it was basically, it's like, as a result of this meddling with the past, time is starting to become unstable, and it's starting to sort of unravel, and it's causing these time loops.
And we had the bit where Sid was I think she talked to Farouk, and she said, this is how he does it. This is how he does it. And he's going, how he does what? This is how David destroys the world.
Yeah.
Because he's messed with time travel.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he does it.
Yeah.
And then there was something weird, because Farouk went to the like where it all happened with the mustachios and Ptolemy, or his name is.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this weird thing coming through, wasn't it?
It was like an image. They'd got a video image, and there was a thing, and they were like, "What is that?" And then it was like it was like, when you see time lapse video where it sort of just jumps from frame to frame. It's not moving like in a flowing way. It's just sort of like jump, and here's the next image, and here's the next image, and the thing was getting closer and closer and closer to the screen, to the point where then it started coming out of the screen. and it was fingertips, and then it was a hand, and then it was an arm, and it was like
and then
obviously coming out of them, and then obviously he used his power, didn't he?
stopped it, didn't he?
And it chopped the arm off, and then they all stood staring at this arm laid on the floor,
Yeah.
and it was like, oh, what is happening? There is something very strange happening here. We also had a really weird moment that threw me completely on the version of it I was watching, because I was like, wait, did they change the channel or something? Because we got a really weird cut where, I'm not sure, you must have seen this bit as well, but it was like suddenly turned into a detective show. But it was like, I thought...
Two guys.
Yeah, there was a guy being like...
I thought it was an
interrogated. And he was being interrogated by another guy, and the guy, obviously, it was Michael Chiklis, who we saw in American Horror Story, and was The Thing in the Fantastic Four movies, and was also in the cop show The Shield, and he's questioning this guy, and he slams a book down on the table, and I'm like, what, is this an advert? Is this somebody's, they've switched to the wrong broadcast? Like, what's happening? But no, it was actually in that episode of Legion, and it was to go,
Yeah,
it was
going crazy, didn't they?
It was further to display to us, the viewer, that everything's going wrong and nothing is how it should be.
As well.
And yeah.
So we had this weird thing about, there was David thinking about his mum.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was called, I think it was Lenny, said, they want you, they need you. And so he had to go into the room and do his happy talk to the girls.
Yeah, and they were all calling him Daddy. Hey, Daddy.
Yeah, make you feel good.
And then Lenny sat at the back of the room with a cane and everything, and she's just like going, "Oh, here we go. Oh, it's all this ego trip thing. Yes, we all want to sleep with you, but blah blah blah." You know, it's like it was so funny, like the way she's so blasé to like.
But she was trying to wind him up, wasn't she, to get him really mad?
Yeah, because she said we need. Well, no, because before she tried to get him mad, that's when they were all questioning what was happening. And
that's when they found out, isn't it? Yeah.
Twitch then explained about the things that live in the time between time.
The whole of time, there are demons live in space outside of time.
And he was like,
they eat time.
What do you mean demons? I mean actual And she said, well, I don't know what they're actually like. They're like cats. They're like, they play with time and they eat it. They're like blue cats. And they're not very nice, and they basically want to be free because they can then destroy us because they eat time, so they'll take time away from us. And the more I use these doorways, the more openings there are for them to get out of their place and into our time. And then everybody started getting panicky and getting really upset. And then he was like, use his mind.
Because Lenny got him mad. He then said to Switch, you need to take me back. And she didn't want to because it was dangerous. And he goes, do I have to force you? And she sort of said, what did you just say? And then all of a sudden time stopped.
Yeah.
And then he went...
He put them all to sleep. All the people were getting scared after Switch's story.
Yeah, they irritated him.
So he used his mind to sort of make them all euphoric because they were all like moaning and stuff like, oh, and they all like collapsed in a really happy state. And then that's when, then Lenny said, we don't need this, David. We don't need hippie guru. You need to be powerful. You need to be strong. And she's like, maybe you don't have it in you anyway. And like, it was almost like sexual, like emasculating him by sort of talking about his ability and his prowess and he can't perform anymore and stuff. But it was more in terms of his mutant powers. And she was trying to get the rise out of him, to which then, he turned all like angry and the room went red. And it was all that, and she was like, that's more like it. And then he realised what she was trying to do, and he sort of came back to himself. And then that's when he delivered that line of like, I am the Alpha and I am the Omega. I eat monsters for breakfast. And he's like, come out and reveal yourselves to me.
And they came out, they were there.
And they were really creepy.
Horrible things. Because they got him.
They were blurry, weren't they? Because they were like blurry and out of focus. They looked like they had weird goggles on and weird grinning mouths. And it was weird because she said they were like cats. I would have said they were more like monkeys in the way they moved and stuff. But they moved very jankily and very like disturbingly. It was quite like to look at, and that's what I mean about the horror aspect. Like the way they move.
Like, you know, when you see demonic things where they move really strange, don't they?
Yeah, and they move from place to place without moving. So you don't see them physically walking from point A to point B. It's like 1 minute they're at point A, then they're at point B, and then they're right in your face, you know, and it was that sort of thing. And there was one coming at him from the doorway, and then you notice there was another one that was approaching him from the side that was on the ceiling, and then, like you said, they got him. They sort of got so close that he didn't have the chance to react in any way, and they got him, and it's like, what have they done with him?
Where is he?
What's happened?
And then he was in some sort of like a prison, and then we could hear some woman going on about the beginning of the end, and he realised it was his mum.
And did you
But
pick
she was
up
dressed
on...
like...
She had like a prisoner's outfit on, didn't she?
Yeah, like she was when she was back in the camps.
Yeah, and do you know what tipped me off straight away, though? That I realised before we got the reveal of her being there and stuff, I was like, what? He's in a prison cell and stuff. But it was when her voice was talking and she was asking what he was. She was like, oh, a new arrival. And then she said, what are you? A homosexual? Gypsy? And I was like, wait, gypsy? That's also people that the Nazis rounded up. Yeah. It wasn't just the Jews, it was also
another one come to get executed,
Yeah, and that was when I made that connection of, oh, he's in a concentration camp in World War II, before we then got the proper reveal of, like, here's his mother, and in the last episode we found out she was in a concentration camp. But, it was not nice. And there were two people, like, sleeping in the cell that he was in.
Yeah.
And then you had her in the other side through the bars. She was in a room separate to him, but where they could sort of see each other through the bars. And then he realised who she was, and they were sort of having a conversation, but then we left that conversation for the time being.
And then we went back to the plane.
Yeah.
And Farouk was explaining about these demons, and then he said they had to go to the rift.
And he said, we need to go where they are from, because they have power here because of the way time works and how they work. But if we go to where they come from, to the source, then they won't have the advantage, because we'll all be on the same, like, level playing field.
And while he was talking, Sid was wandering off, and then she disappeared. And then she reappeared somewhere, and she was talking to a girl who was her younger self.
Well, yeah, because she started following someone down the corridors, didn't she? And you kept catching the glimpse of someone, never seeing them fully, just seeing part of someone carrying on, going round a corner every time she got close to them. And then when she did finally catch up with her, it was this younger girl, and it turned out to be her. And it's the her that we've seen before, because when we saw her backstory and her flashbacks of, like, when her powers manifested when she was a teenager and stuff, it was this girl. It was the girl that we've seen playing younger version of Sid. And they were, like, it was like a recreation of her, like, bedroom, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they were sat on a bed having a conversation. And it was really weird that she was talking to the younger version of her and telling her about now and about, like, last year, I was you, like, not you as you, but I was in your position where I was the one where a version of me from the future was communicating with me. And now I'm the one doing that. And the younger her was asking her lots of questions. And then they touched back on the coming into the powers thing and what happened that time where she sort of touched the mum and took on the mum's body and then went into the shower with the mum's boyfriend and all of that stuff. Yeah. And then it was interesting, the parallel, because she talked about that and she said it was all about power, and because she's like, why did he turn me round? I don't understand. I thought it was all supposed to be about love. And she's like, because it was about power and control. And then she's like, oh, well, do we ever find anybody? Do we ever fall in love? And she's like, yeah, we do. But then he turns us round. And it was like, that was interesting, the way that they framed that of, like, and then he changes. And it was like, oh, okay. And then, that was all very interesting, that whole cut, because they were having deeper meaningfuls, they were laughing, and she was just sat there in that whole time when everything else was going on, just spending time with this young version of herself. And we cut backwards and forwards to that every so often, didn't we? We'd, like, have a bit, then it'd go off, then it'd come back to them again, then it'd go off, and then come back to them again.
And then when we went back to things kept disappearing, and then we had the other Carrie, the man Carrie, in the lab, and he was trying to he was doing something like soldering or something.
Wasn't it the device he's supposed to be making for Switch to amplify her powers? That's what he was working on, and then they came for him as well, didn't they?
Well, it kept disappearing, bits of it. It's like, what? And then he realised what was going on, and somehow he got out of that. He actually, didn't he have a flashback, and he remembered exactly, we saw all the things they did to him the week before.
Well, what was weird was that we then realised, obviously, the things kept moving and changing and disappearing out of his hands and stuff, and then you saw the thing again, you saw one of these time demons, and it came up to his ear, and it seemed to pull something out of him, and then the next thing, when he turned around, it looked, the only thing I can describe it as, it looked like a blue poo. It looked like a blue, like curly poo on the stool, and there was steam coming off it and stuff. And he went over to investigate it, and there was something in it, and he pulled it out. And as he did, he suddenly remembered being taken there, being gassed, having David sort of like hypnotize him. And it was like all that stuff that he clearly didn't remember because it had all been,
And I will make you do what I need you to do. He remembered him saying that.
yeah. And then it all
So he
came
knew
back
what
to
he
him.
was doing was David had tricked him, and he said, "What did he say? Treason or not? Treachery."
Yes, treachery. Treachery!
Yeah.
And so then he got out of there and he was like trying to find a way out. And along the way he found Switch, didn't he?
She was hiding.
With the pig and a giant toothbrush.
And he told her he'd come to rescue her, didn't
Yeah, and then she was really confused because he was going, I know who you are, you're the time traveller. And he obviously did the same to you, didn't he? He kept you here, and she didn't have a chance to explain of like, no, I came here of my own free will and stuff. But he was like going, I'm here to rescue you, don't fear. We're going to get out of here and all of this stuff. And
they were trying to get out, and they got to the door, and then there was people there.
Yeah.
And she goes, time is frozen there, so we can't move them.
And they did
and
the
they
thing,
threw
she
something,
said, don't...
didn't they? And it just stopped.
Yeah, it was a flower, wasn't it? And she said, if you go
Yeah,
near them, you'll end up like them.
Yeah. And then she goes, I know, remember the tunnel she came through?
Yeah.
She went, go through the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
And then they headed off through the tunnel.
Yep.
And then meanwhile, didn't we have David back in the place trying to use his powers, and his powers wouldn't work?
That's right. And then when he was talking...
then trying to convince his mum to all the things like he was trying to say to her when they did do the time travel.
Yeah, and he said, you're going to have a baby, and you need to protect that baby because there's something that will happen to it, and you need to stop it from happening. And my father, your husband, when you meet him, you'll meet him in hospital, and basically all the things we saw last episode. Yeah. And she said, but don't let him go away, don't let him leave, and all this stuff. And then he said about the name, and then he said, and then you'll name him David. And she went, David, I've always liked that name. And then it went weird again because she grinned, but she froze.
Yeah.
And then we saw the two other prisoners that were in the room with him were stood right behind him. And they were also grinning. And then it all got dissolved, and it wasn't real, was it? It was like a mirage. And those two prisoners were actually two of those time demons.
And he kept trying to walk towards them and get past them, and I'll get there, and then next thing he was back.
Yeah, they kept resetting him.
Yeah, kept going forward and forward and backwards and forwards. Meanwhile, Farouk and the gang appeared in a weird between time.
And this was brilliant. Again, we've talked about this in previous weeks about how clever this show is in showing concepts, like how they visualize something. So it's like, well, you're going to a place where time doesn't work the same. How do you show this? How do you showcase the time between time? And they did it it was like photographs, wasn't it? It was like old-fashioned like photographs.
It was so clever.
And the sun was a clock.
Yeah.
And the landscape was like, it was almost like they were in like somewhere like Arizona or something. It was like a big like desert with mountains and
wasteland
things like that.
Yeah.
And when it showed them moving, it was like it just went from like, here's a picture of them, and then here's a picture of them staring into the distance. Here's a picture of them halfway up the mountain. Here's a picture of them setting a camp up. And it was like somebody going through someone's photographs.
Photograph album.
Yeah. It was really clever. I was just like, I really like the stylization of this. Like, how do you showcase? Because they had words on the screen sometimes as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
It was like, meanwhile, in a time between time, and like when Farouk was talking, because again, he's not talking like we are now, or like they see in a program. So it was appearing as words on the screen, as if it was like a silent movie. And he was trying to explain to them everything.
So they were doing that. So meantime, Switch and Carrie Man got out through the tunnel, and there was a phone box, which was a weird. It looked like to me a portaloo. So he was trying to get hold of the plane, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And he got hold of Photomony, or whatever his name is, and he was saying, and he said, "Oh, you got to override the code."
Yeah.
He's going, "I can't do it," and they said, "You got to override it." And in the end, anyway, basically, long story short, he managed to get them, and they ended up on the plane, didn't they?
It's like they got teleported onto the plane or something.
Yeah. And then we had the other bit where Sid and the girl were chatting, and she said about hugging her, and she hugged her, and then it was all nice, and then all of a sudden, The time eater got her.
Again, it was another illusion, and it was that
Yeah.
creature, and it was like on top of her, and again, really scary. Like, it was horrible, because it was weird, wasn't it? Because she said, what would happen if we hugged each other? Would we swap places? And she's like, I
Yeah.
don't know. And she said, let's try it. And so they're hugging. And first it was nice, and it was like, oh, nothing's happening. But then the younger version of her was squeezing her more and more, and she was getting more disturbed, like, you're squeezing me, sort of thing. And then, then it all dissolved, and it was actually her on the floor, and this grinning creature looming over her. And it was like, oh my God, that's horrifying.
It was horrible.
It was
And
really
then,
horrible.
also, the other thing that happened, we had Lenny looking for Salmon, the girl.
Yeah.
And the baby was coming. So the baby was coming. The baby arrived. The baby's gone. The baby's now a child. The baby's now a teenager. Now it's an adult. Now it's an older woman. Now it's a dying woman. Oh.
And now the woman's gone.
That was
horrible.
Now she's distraught. Oh.
That whole sequence, that whole sequence was heartbreaking, because it was like, can you imagine what that would be like if you didn't change, but you had to live like through the lifetime of your child from birth to death in a matter of moments.
Yeah.
It was like, and she just was traumatized by the end of it, wasn't she? She was just absolutely distraught.
Yeah. And then we clicked back to Farouk and the gang, and they had this weird demon song.
Yeah.
And saw them actually fighting the demons.
Mm-hmm.
They were fighting in this weird song, as they always have to have a weird song in that program.
Yeah.
And then, but at the other end, we had David getting stronger, burning the demons and expelling them and saying it's not their time.
And he said, go back and find your friends and tell them that this is my time. That they leave, and if you don't leave, I'll destroy every last one of you.
And because he was doing that, the Farouk gang, it was almost like we had the photographs again.
Yeah.
Like, all done and dusted.
Well, that's when it changed, didn't it? That section then changed from photos to like a flip book, like a flip picture book, where it was going faster and faster, like the pages were flipping. And you saw the one that had obviously been sent away. He arrived there, spoke to the other ones. They all left. Then you saw where Sid was, and then the other one appeared, spoke to the one that was on top of her. Then they left, and it's like they all just like they all just went, and they just like disappeared back to wherever they come from.
Yeah. And then, bless, we had Lenny crying outside on the pavement.
Yeah.
And they trying to take her, I'll make it better. And she said she didn't want him to make it better because she wanted to remember the pain and the sadness, because she's mental, as we know, as well.
Yeah.
And to her, she didn't want him to take that. She wanted to remember it all again, didn't she?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, poor Lenny.
The most horrible thing as well about this episode is the fact that some of those things, like the illusions were illusions, but the things like where stuff was time was moving on, like that happened. So that basically means that baby she was looking forward to having has grown up and died.
It's gone.
Yeah. So that wasn't like an illusion that will be undone. It's like, no, that she was in that time, but the time that was being eaten was the child's time. So that's why the child's lifespan went so quickly. And it's like, no, that child's now gone. So there's no undoing that.
So it's interesting now, because obviously she was saying about leaving, and she's sick of it all. This is her turning point, maybe. This is why she's going to want to go now. She don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Being around him just makes things... And now she's felt this pain and sadness.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting to see how it moves on with her now, won't it?
And was that not how, by him saying about fixing stuff, didn't he say about Switch, and then she said she's gone?
Yeah. She said he'd gone.
And he was like, what do you mean? Man. The scientist man took her away. And then he was really angry. And he was like, and that's kind of how it ended with that.
How it ended, like,
so now he's going to go after the Division 3 or whatever they're called, and go after them to try and get her back.
Yeah. But I would say to anyone listening, you have to watch this episode to understand it. You just need to watch it. Because it's so visual more than... Because it's so weird the way things happened. Like, say, it was hard to talk about.
Yeah.
It is just... You need to see it to believe it, basically.
Definitely.
Yeah, so again, like I said with Fear, again, an episode that you thought was annoying and what was the point of it came into play in this with the mother thing again, didn't it?
Yeah.
In a way. So in a way, that even though it made no sense at the time, it was relevant. Because if they hadn't had that episode, and then he saw his mum and he was saying all that, it might not have married up as much as it would have done if we hadn't had the other episode. So
Yeah.
you get what I mean?
But yeah, it was good. It was all together. It was a really good, and I love the tone of it. This horror episode. I was, it made me feel very, very unnerving, and the style. Again, like we've said before, one of the things that's brilliant about this show in comparison to a lot of shows on television is how stylish it is, how clever they are at portraying certain things, and the flip book, the old timey pictures, things like that. It was a really clever way of showcasing what they were trying to showcase.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very clever.
So yeah,
very exhausting again, still watching it like it used to be when we used to watch it before.
Yeah, definitely. But once again, echoing what you said, and as we've said before, if you haven't watched Legion, watch it. Go and watch it. Go back, find season 1, watch it, watch season 2, and then watch season 3, because it's so worth your time, because it is so different to most other programs you'll watch, and it is very clever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Legion. So now we're going to move on, and we are going to get dug in to episode 2 of season 3 of Stranger Things, and this is the episode that I mentioned last week. It's called The Mallrats.
Mallrats.
So
yes.
as it's been longer for me since I watched this episode, I'll let you begin.
Well, we start at the end of last episode. Billy had been taken by something after crashing his car. So it started with him being spat out by something. And escaping, and he got to a phone box and tried to get hold of something.
Yeah.
So trying to get hold of some help.
Yeah, he was going to ring the police, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But it was funny actually, because I called it wrong at that point when I watched it, because obviously in the first episode we got the bit where Nancy got the phone call about the rats, but we didn't know who she spoke to or anything. And then when we saw Billy making the phone call, I was like, oh, is he the one that calls Nancy? And I thought it was going to be connected that way, but it turned out that wasn't.
It up wrongly.
Yeah, that wasn't the case. But yeah, he hung the phone up, didn't he? So I think maybe he realised, what am I going to say? What am I going to tell the police, sort of thing.
But it's weird because it looked like the thing got him again, but then it didn't.
Yeah.
So did it get him or did it? And then he could hear all his stomping noise, and he could see these people coming towards him,
coming out of mist and stuff.
And said, "What do you want?" or something, and then it was him.
Yeah. And it was the only one you could see properly was him, was a doppelganger of him, but there was all these other people, but they were all in the shadow, so you couldn't really make out who they're meant to be.
No.
But it was just so
that was
what? What's happening?
So I also remembered we went back to the other guys. So we forgot to mention last week about, although we had the conversation that Hopper had gone to ask her, what's Will's mum called? I just refer to her as Will's mum.
Joyce.
I can never remember
Joyce.
her name. Joyce. Right. So remember he went to see Joyce in the store and she told him how to deal with the kids.
Yeah.
But we forgot to mention that he didn't do that, did he? Because he was going to sit them down and talk, and in the end he took Mike outside in the car and scared him off, basically. He told Mike to go away. So when we saw Elle this week, in this episode, she was waiting for him to come and get her to go to school or go out for the day, and he stood her up. And she rang him up, and he was going, yeah, my gran. And she goes, but Hopper said your gran wasn't that bad. And she goes, and then the mum was shouting in the background, and he was trying to get out of it. And she was getting really upset about the fact that, why is he being so horrible to her? Because then what happened, he was then overjoyed because he realised he'd split them up and went to tell Will's mum that the talk went well, but he didn't actually tell her, he didn't tell them what he was supposed to be telling them. He didn't tell Joyce that he had actually said, I scared the boy off, because she says he won't be coming around no more.
And his plan was that he was going to do the speech that she trained him to say, and he sat on the chair, and then they were making fun of him, and they were sort of being teenagers and being a bit disrespectful. So he then lost his temper, and it was screw the plan. So then he said about Mike had to leave, and then about the cover story about the grandmother. And then when he was in the car with him, then he had a go at him, and he sort of said, stay away from my daughter and all this kind of thing. And he said, I'm the sheriff, and he's basically I could do what I want, and who's gonna prevent me because I'm the law sort of attitude.
So then, yeah, he turned up to see Joyce to tell her about it, and then he set up a date with her.
Yeah.
And then he got a phone call about something that was going on at the town hall.
Mm-hmm.
And he knocked the display over. He goes, "Oh, sorry, you'll have to clear up." And went off. And then she realised they were magnets and she couldn't get them to go back on.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, they're just falling off. They're just falling off. So, so that was that bit. So then we had Nancy trying to get out of work because she wanted to go and follow up the story. She told Jonathan, "We're going to follow the story up."
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, "I got to go to the doctors," and he was being nasty to her with her boss. And then she went, "It's women's things." And he went, "Yes, you can have the time. You can have the time."
Typical.
The two of them,
typical men, and especially
say
typical
women's
men.
things, you can get away with murder.
Especially in
They
that
don't want to
time
know
period.
about that. Yeah, especially
I mean, like,
in that time period. Yeah.
nowadays, all of this stuff is so much more open and out there in the world. But back then, it was more sort of like,
it's still a bit tabooish, but it was worse in those
Yeah.
days. But yeah, so she said, "Come on, Jonathan." So we get sacked. She goes, "Oh, we get sacked. We have to work at this shit place or something."
Mm.
So they got in the car and drove off to follow up the story about the rats. So that they went off. Then we go to the ice cream parlour, and Dustin turns up.
I love the way that he just showed up. He stood at the counter grinning at Robin, and she's just like, what are you, you know, like, why are you here? And he's just like, looking for Steve, obviously. And then
But he
she's
said,
like,
"Is she in?" He did said, "Is she here?"
Right.
And then when he appeared, and he
Are
went,
you sure he didn't?
"Whoa!" She goes, "How many more children have you got?"
Are you sure he didn't say Steve, but because he's got no teeth, it sounded
maybe.
different? Yeah.
But she said, "How many more children you got?" And then they did their weird ritual.
Yeah, their little hands, like
they
their
made
thing
buddies,
that they made up.
in the road trip.
It was in last season.
Yeah, last season.
They
wasn't
really
it?
bonded.
Last season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was hilarious, all that bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was telling him about Hot Susie.
Yeah. And then
he goes, "Kissing is better without teeth."
Yeah, she says that kissing me is better because I don't have teeth and stuff. Yeah.
It's like, Steve, that's a thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was trying to tell Steve about the Russian message without saying too much.
Yeah, without saying anything.
He couldn't hear him because obviously he was. And then in the end, he said it really loud.
And like everybody looked around, like there was a reaction from all around him.
And he goes, "How are we supposed to do that?" And he goes, "They put a book on the table." He goes, "We have to translate it."
Yeah.
Left it. That's how it left them two.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had we had Max on her skateboard, trying to skateboard, and she kept falling off. And then all of a sudden, Elle, looking pretty angry at the time, grabbed the skateboard. I thought she was going to punch her. Walked up to her, and they started talking about the boys, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then we had the boys in the house talking about the girls.
Mm-hmm.
But poor old Will, all he wanted to do was play Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, I know.
I thought, poor old Will.
He just wants things to be the way that they were.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. One thing I will say, and I mean, you'll find this, I think, as the series progresses a bit more, is that they're all seemingly growing up a bit now, aren't they? Like, we're already seeing this with the characters. They're all starting to, you know, they're becoming teenagers, they're, you know, relationships, all this kind of thing. But probably, as a result of everything that happened to him in the past 2 seasons, Will is still like a little boy. He's he's innocent. He had his innocence stolen from him by the traumatic, the traumatic experience he got put through. So now he just wants to live the life of a kid again. But they've all grown up. They're all growing up, and he's like doesn't want things to change. So you feel really sorry for him in all of this. You're like, oh, Will. Bless you.
So was that the time that, correct me if I'm wrong, before they had the girly time and boy time, wasn't that the time she wanted to see what they were talking about and she put the blindfold on?
Yeah, so basically you had the scenes of them separately, and you had this whole like, okay, so Max and Elle are going to hang out together and have girl time. So they start hanging out together and stuff, and then eventually they're talking about obviously her Eleven's powers and what she can do, and like wonder what the boys are up to. I wonder what they're talking about. And like Max is going, oh, Lucas is probably doing this and saying this, and Mike's probably saying that, and he's probably feeling really sheepish that he's upset you, blah 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 blah. And then she's like, has an idea, and is like, oh, Let's find
out what they're really doing.
Yeah, I can eavesdrop. I can find out what they're talking about.
They were dissing the girls, weren't they, and saying, oh, well, girls are different species.
Yeah.
And all this and all that. And she was so angry, wasn't she? Because she's like, to her, because she said she again is so innocent. This is all new to her. and that was all important. This is like really important to her. Yeah, the other girls brushing it off more than her, but it's like, this isn't good. So then she
But
said, all right, we're going to...
the other thing, sorry, I need to add in. The other thing that's important here, because it's a callback to previous things to do with her character, but also her relationship with Mike, is that the discovery that, like, there is no sick grandmother or dying grandmother or anything, and then it's the whole, like, friends don't lie. Because do you remember
that's her main
that?
thing. Friends don't lie is her main thing, isn't it?
When he was trying to befriend her in the very first season and trying to convince her, no, we're not baddies, we're kids like you and stuff, and it was that whole thing of friends don't lie, and that's been a recurring theme over time amongst them. So it was then her again echoing that, and it's like, he lied to me, but friends don't lie. So why is he lying? And then, like you said, then Max convinced her, look, we need to go and do girly stuff. Let's go shopping.
Yeah. Before we get to that, though, we had the slight bit where they had the swimming pool, didn't we? And the women were all waiting for Billy.
Yeah.
And we spotted him going in, and he didn't look very good. And the mum, because obviously we found out she didn't turn up. She didn't even try to turn up. She decided not to for the swimming lesson.
Yeah.
So she had gone in to try to apologise to him for not turning up, but he was acting really weird, wasn't he? He was sweating and wouldn't turn round. And at one point, he looked like he got angry with her, but he didn't. It's what it looked like he was going to do.
That bit, I thought, oh my God, like he's killed her, sort of thing. Because, but it was like it was visions and nightmares and things like that, wasn't it?
So she apologised. I've got a family, I've thought about it, sorry, and all that. So then she left, and then we go back to the ice cream parlour, and we were introduced properly to Erica, Lucas's sister, at the ice cream parlour, trying to get free tasters for the ice cream. That was hilarious. She's great. I love her.
She's so sassy and... she just doesn't give any Fs, does she? She's just sort of like, look, are you going to serve me? I'm allowed free samples. Are you going to give me my free samples or not? And all this kind of stuff.
So she's asking for all this. Meanwhile, Dustin and Steve are in the back trying to translate the message. And Robin's just literally getting seriously peed off with this kid.
Yeah.
And she went into the room and heard them all. So I know it's because when they wrote the letters on the board, they were trying to translate her A, and she was saying it was another language, and she ended up taking.
Yeah, because she said that she knows all these other languages, and then they went Russian, and she went no, but I know all these other languages, so I think I can probably work it out, and probably do better than you do.
She said something like, I can interpret your Russian spy message you heard.
And they're like, how do you know about this?
How much did she hear? So she said to Mike, not to Mike, to Steve, you go back out there.
And I'll help.
I've got this. And she stayed with Dustin. So that was so funny.
One little thing at that point, which then comes up again later, which was that they did notice something, though, in the recording. They kept going, there's something else there. Something familiar. Yeah, there's something else there. There's something familiar, and I can't quite place what it is. And I mean, I'm sure you, like me, probably clocked it straight away and went, I know what that is.
Well, he said it was a music or something, didn't he? And he goes, "There's this music." I said, "I've heard it before," but then obviously they didn't pursue it at that particular time, did they? So then we had Nancy and Jonathan going to visit Mrs. Driscoll, who's the woman that rang about the rats. Oh my God. And she's a weird woman anyway.
Yeah.
And then she said, come down here. And she goes, look, they've been eating the fertiliser.
Yeah.
And they're talking away to her. And she goes, and then they heard this banging. And she goes, I didn't tell you, I caught one of the bastards.
And did you think, I don't know if you thought the same as me, but my first thought was, what if it's one of those things, like we saw in season 2, the little creature, the weird,
the one that he caught.
Yeah, what was it called? I can't remember what it was called now. He gave it a name and everything, didn't he? But I thought it was going to be one of those weird creatures from the Upside Down.
Slimy things, yeah.
And because I thought that sounds like it's whatever's in there is far bigger than a rat. The amount of racket it's making and stuff. But no, it was a rat, wasn't it?
A rat, yeah. And then he started taking pictures of it, didn't he? And she decided to go back upstairs and start ringing around the farms and places that have fertiliser to see if anyone else had any problems with the rat problem.
And whether it was something chemically or something out going on like that.
Yeah, so while she was upstairs, this rat was bashing around the cage, wasn't it? And then it started going all weird. Actually, it stopped, didn't it?
Yeah.
It's like had some sort of seizure.
Did you
And then
think? Did you think what I thought was going to happen? Because he got really close to the cage at one point, and I thought, it's going to explode in his face.
I knew it was going to. I had a feeling it was going to explode after what happened to the others.
I thought it was going to be one of
He
those.
was getting all over him, yeah.
Yeah, one of those gross out moments where he was going to lean in to sort of take a closer look, and it was going to go bang, and it was going to shower him in like rat guts and stuff. But they didn't do that.
Because she came and said, "Oh no, we got to go somewhere else," and
Yeah.
he'd run out of film or something anyway, hadn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So they left. It wasn't until afterwards, obviously, even though that's not relevant. That's when, after they left, this sputtered, and then this slimy thing crawled out of it.
Yeah, it basically exploded, but the exploded guts and everything of the rat slid through the bars of the cage and out onto the floor, and it was like, wait, that whatever it is, it's like, even though it blew up, it's not dead. So all of the blood and the flesh and everything is like, it's moving. So
then we went back to where Hopper was at the mayor. Now, Mayor Klein is another guy. I can't remember. I did look him up and I forgot now.
Last week, when I said to you about there are some notable people in this programme, and then I said, and there's one, but I won't mention that one because we haven't met that character yet.
Yeah.
That was this guy. So the mayor is Carrie Elwes. Carrie Elwes, who was the star of The Princess Bride, which was the 80s movie that also had Andre the Giant in. He was in Robin Hood, Men in Tights, the Mel Brooks thing.
He was in Saw.
He was in Saw. Yep.
That's where when I saw that, because that's where I recognise him. I don't know the other films. I've never seen them.
Are you joking me? You've never seen
Robin Hood in Tights or
The Princess Bride?
No.
Oh, I'm ashamed of you right now. Don't judge me too harshly on this, people on the internet, that my mother hasn't seen these genre movies. But yeah, he's been in lots of stuff. So
just saw Saw. I went, that's.
Oh, you know what else he was in that you've seen him in?
He
was in Liar Liar with Jim Carrey.
Oh yes, that was. He was one of the lawyers, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he's like, because he's in ways, he has similar mannerisms to Jim Carrey sometimes. There's certain things about him that are a bit Jim Carrey-esque, so it was quite funny that them two did a film together. But yeah, I mean, he's been in tons of stuff, but it was quite cool seeing him. Yeah. And he's as our American brethren would say, he's a douchebag.
Yeah. But yeah, because he was saying to Hopper about because they were all protesting because the mall shut down. He's going, it's not my fault. They can't go to their little mama, what was it, like mama shops or
mum and pop.
Yeah, mama and pop shops and all this stuff. It's progress. So obviously at the time we didn't know the relevance of that. So basically, in the end, they started getting a bit angry. So he had to do something, didn't he? So anyway, so then we went back to Elle and Max, and the whole scenario, they went the shopping.
Yeah, and that was great. You had this
that's brilliant.
like montage thing with them shopping, and it was Material Girl, Madonna and stuff, and they're trying on all the clothes.
They're being like a little girl, like not knowing what's this, and like try this out, have this, and all the weird and wonderful things. And then she got pissed off with those girls because she had tried to walk in some shoes,
and she kept fumbling because obviously she doesn't use high heels.
Their drinks pop out into their faces and laughed and giggled. So sweet. And then we also, at the same time, the boys were in the mall looking for something. The underwear shop.
So funny. Their reaction was just perfectly typical young teenage boys. It was great.
You're just like, really? Even Will was like, oh.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
That was so funny. Yeah, so that obviously we had all that stuff going on. Yeah, wasn't that one after? Yeah, because after that they met up with them, didn't they?
Yeah,
the girls came out.
Bumped into each other.
The girls went and got an ice cream from Steve, and they came out with the ice creams, and the boys were getting their bikes.
Because Mike wanted to get Elle a present.
Yeah.
And he was going to get her a necklace or something, and it was really expensive. And then they bumped into, they were getting their bikes, and obviously the girls came out, and they bumped into each other, and there was a confrontation. And then obviously because she's listened in to them talking, she was even more cross, because it's like, not only did you lie to me,
also the thing about friends don't lie.
Yeah, and then about them being different species and all this kind of stuff. And then she had said, because obviously Max had said to her earlier about her and Lucas had broke up loads of times, and then she just sort of looked in his face and she just went, I dump your ass.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
And then walked off, and it was like, what?
They they all just stood there dumbfounded, and two of them got on the bus and started giggling.
Yeah.
I love that bit. I thought, oh, she's such a sweet little kid, little teenager.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. So then we went to Will's mum because of what happened with the magnets. She was had tons of books in her shop looking about magnetic things, and she's obsessed now. After two things have happened, so she's a bit more savvy than she was in the beginning of season 1.
Yeah.
And then she decided to go and see, I can't remember his name now, Scott.
Yeah.
The teacher. To see if he could help her work out what's going on, because obviously he knows all things science.
And so, like, when she's talking about what it could be, he starts talking about magnets and magnetic currents and what could be used to disrupt it, and he kind of shows her a little experiment, doesn't he? But then he says something like that, though, what you're talking about would have to be on a big scale, and it have to generate a lot of energy and all this kind of stuff.
So in the meantime, we had Hopper going to the restaurant in a new shirt. He got the old lady at the precinct to get for him.
Yeah.
Ordering his whiskey and then a bottle, and he had it all sussed out. He's waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. No sign of her, because she's there with Scott working out the magnet thing. But while he was there, that really creepy bloke that got that other scientist at the beginning of episode 1, because the experiment went wrong. You remember he killed that scientist?
Yeah,
he grabbed him. He was at the bar in the same place he was. I thought, oh, that's odd. We also had Billy back at the swimming pool having visions of what happened to him.
Yeah.
Because and then he had this thing on his arm, didn't he? Like his arm was burning. So he went off into the shower and he was trying to cool his arm down.
And he was boiling. He was like sweating loads.
Boiling.
And yeah.
And then the lifeguard girl that normally swaps with him came, and first she says something like demonic, like, have you got him? Or he wants you. Or I can't remember what she said.
Something like, no, wasn't it something to do like being like you, or make me like you, or something like that? It was
something
like
to do, like how the voice was speaking through, and he looked at her, and then she just said, are you all right? And then he gave her a really weird look, and I thought, oh.
Yeah.
So then you go back to Dustin, Steve, and Robin. So they got some of the message. So all she knows now at the moment, she knows Silver Cat feeds.
Yeah.
So they're walking along, and talking about it. And then Steve goes, hang on. And there was like a horse ride, wasn't there?
Yeah, one of those, like, put the money in and
goes,
you ride on it, yeah.
I got a quarter or something. And it was Daisy, Daisy, that song.
And that was the song.
It's the message.
So then that made them realise, but if that
Clues
music
in the mall.
Yeah, if that music came from
Not
here.
in Russia. Yeah. So that was really cool. And then that obviously all that went off. Then right at the end, we saw Billy in his car going back to the weird place that he had crashed.
The mill, yeah.
Yeah. And he had the girl in the boot, the girl that said, are you okay? And he just put her on the floor and he goes, don't be afraid, and it will be over soon. Just stay very still.
Yeah.
Then we heard this sort of nasty monster sound. It was like, oh my days, and that's how it ended.
And did you pick up? I don't know how good the image was that you saw, but the shape of it looked very familiar. The thing that was coming out of the darkness, the shape, the outline,
was like the thing in the previous one.
The smoke monster, yeah.
Yeah, in the other one.
Yeah. Because
we thought it hadn't gone away, didn't we?
Yeah. But it looked a bit more formed, didn't it?
Yeah. But, so much happened. There's so much fun.
Yeah.
There's all evil as well. Like, roll on next week.
Yes, it's so good.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about more of this because it's very good. But yeah, all in all, brilliant episode. So again, Stranger Things, if you haven't watched it, go and watch it. Will, as we mentioned previously,
watch season 2.
Watch season 2, watch season 3. Yeah, it's great. Fantastic.
Watch it from the beginning right through to season 3 and then it makes more sense. Not long, there's not that many episodes in each season, is there? So
no, exactly.
Binge watch it.
Yeah. So there we go. So that's Stranger Things for this week. And now, so we move on to our final episode review of today. And this is as I mentioned at the beginning, the second part of a 2-part storyline. So episode 9 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 6, and it's Collision Course part 2.
Yes.
Go.
Yes. Okay, go. Right. So the truck, the plane, and the spaceship are all heading for the destination.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got 6 minutes to impact.
Yeah.
So the truck is running loose because obviously he's got out the truck at the end of the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
So we see them like going off. Yo-Yo back at the lighthouse. Yo-Yo is trying to get to the truck with the Quinjet because they said that's the quickest way. I'll get the Quinjet set up.
Yeah.
Cool. You do that. Meanwhile, Sarge, who had escaped through the top of the truck, had ended up on the plane.
Yeah.
And he's that was quite interesting. So he got the guys out and he said, what we're going to do with that fast woman? You know, she's dangerous. He goes, well, he didn't say it, but I just put, he's got a shield to stop stop her. He said something else. I can't remember what it was.
Mm.
They had some sort of force field they could put round to stop her getting through.
Yeah.
Once they got where they wanted to be, she couldn't get there. And they said, what about Snowflake? And he said, oh, well, unfortunately, I couldn't do anything about that. So he wasn't really caring about her.
And the other two didn't seem very happy about the fact that he was so willing to just leave her behind.
Leave her on her own, yeah.
Mm.
So then we went to the spaceship and we had Fitzsimmons, because I refer to them as Fitzsimmons. Cause
yeah, you said that before, Fitzsimmons.
They still can't get the comms working.
Mm-hmm.
All the crew are wandering around, milling around. They notice they're all acting odd. And they go, why are they acting so odd? And then they say, Izel, is it?
Yeah,
Izel,
yeah.
So he started questioning her about it.
She basically then confirmed that it was because of her, wasn't it? She was just like, oh, well, you know, they're more useful this way or something. She's like, don't worry. And they're not going to do that to you and all this stuff.
Still at that time, she had no interest in hurting them.
Mm.
She just said, oh, don't worry about that. Yes, I've sorted them out.
Yeah.
So then we went back to the truck. So then there was a bomb on the truck, which turned out to be an atom bomb.
Yes.
And Deke had to try and defuse it.
No pressure, Deke. No pressure. You know, here's this bomb. Have you ever defused an atom bomb before? No? Well, this is the time to learn how to do it. And it's like, don't worry, babe. He's like saying to Snowflake, don't worry, babe. You know, I'll sort this out and everything.
Well, he's trying to be macho because he had this new girl, didn't he? And then he goes, I can't do it. So it's like, oh, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
We went back to the lighthouse. Sarge had got through and had taken hold of Mac and put a force field up round that room and told him he wanted them to turn the ship around.
Yeah.
He didn't want to go towards, he wants to get away from it because he knows what's going to happen, doesn't he? Because obviously the plane's going to blow up. The plane, as we now know, is also a spaceship.
Yeah. Because
of what had happened in previous seasons. So he wanted to get that out of the way. And then we went back to the truck. So the truck's going to crash and blow into this weird thing.
Yeah, the crystal structure.
And then, because he couldn't stop the bomb, Daisy had to do her powers to, not defuse it, but sort of like, what's the word? Not sustain.
Yeah, yes. It's almost like, in some ways, she sort of had it, held
Controlled it.
Held it in stasis, didn't she? She was using her quake powers to sort of keep it from blowing up.
Just as well, because then it smashed into the steel barrier, which then turned into loads of these shrike things, what they're called.
The shrike, yeah.
They were everywhere. It's like swarming everywhere. So basically, thinking about that, that's what they, when we could see something, you said something was moving.
And it was like a swarm.
Back a long time ago when he looked in, saw the video, that's obviously what they were. So anyway, back on the ship with Fitzsimmons, that Azale's getting angry about the tower. She realises the tower's destroyed, so she tells them they need to go higher.
Yeah.
She needs to move it up higher.
Yeah, they have to retreat, basically, because wasn't that also the point where they made contact?
Yeah.
When they made contact with S.H.I.E.L.D., and then you heard Sarge's voice.
Yeah.
And she looked at them like the fact that they recognised the voice, and that obviously comes up again in a bit, but they were like, Coulson? And then he's like, I don't know where this is, and he's like, you blah, blah, blah. And then you have this backwards and forwards conversation between Sarge and Izel, and it seems like there's a lot more to their history than meets the eye. So again, going back to what I said before about I don't fully believe that she's, at least she's not the only baddie, because what did she say to him about what name are you using now, or whose face are you using? And then she's like, you've forgotten who you are. Yeah. And remember who you really are, because he was like, you took everything from me, you killed my family and the people I loved. And she's like, so that's what you think, or that's what you think you remember, or something like that.
Yeah, because basically the way they got through is Fitzsimmons and that got through, but they did a bogus distress call, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they were talking to Davis, and then he intercepted the call.
Yeah,
and then she was there. That's how they ended up talking to each other.
Because considering it's always this way, isn't it? When you find that intellectually intelligent people aren't always, they don't always have the most common sense. So
No.
Davis was trying to give them a clue that everything's not okay by repeating the call sign thing, and they're like, "You're not Shield, blah blah blah. That's not your call sign." All this stuff, and it's like, "Oh, you don't."
Sweet and naive.
Yeah, it's like you don't. You might be clever, but you're not. You haven't got a lot of common sense. And then obviously that's when Sarge realised, wait, I understand what you're trying to do here. And then he. And
also, that's when she turned nasty on them as well.
Yeah, after they finished talking, because of the whole, you recognise him, you know him, you're in cahoots with him, and all this stuff. And they're trying to explain that, and she's like, well, that's what you would say if you're trying to protect your own skin. And they're like, whoa, and she tried to get the zombie shriek people to come, and they pulled guns out, and she's like, there you go, protecting your own skin. And it was like, oh no.
It's like, no, is that when they ran off and hid?
Yes.
Yeah, they ran off and hid.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so we had the truck, so when we went back to, well, obviously the truck was being attacked by Shriek.
Yeah.
And Daisy.
They were trying to reinforce it.
And they reinforced the truck, and then Daisy said that what was it they said? They're in a, what's the word she used?
I can't remember.
May said something, because they said she was going to open the door, and because she said, don't worry, I'll open the door. And they're in it like a bottleneck. Was it bottleneck?
Yeah. It's a bottleneck, yeah.
Yeah, so she was going to let the Shriek in.
Mm-hmm.
And as they came, it was so cool. That
was awesome,
yeah. Just let them in, and they just like disintegrated in front of her, didn't they?
Because she was using her quake powers to just turn them to dust, wasn't she?
It's like, oh, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, back on the plane, Yo-Yo'd obviously tried to get in.
Yeah.
And because she was the other side of the force field, what happened? How did that guy get through the force field? I can't remember now. But she smash his face into the other guy that works with Sarge, the other guy.
The little guy.
Yeah, she pushed his face into the force field and it burned his face off.
Yeah, and then Sarge killed him, ultimately, didn't he? He killed the little guy, and then the big guy, Jacko, was like, you know, again, it's this whole, you're leaving people behind and all this stuff, and so he wanted to go out and check on him.
Yeah.
And then, oh no, that's right, yeah, he burnt his face, and then Jacko wanted to go...
He let him out of the force field to check on him.
And then he killed him, he shot him.
Yeah, and he sent him to look for Yo-Yo, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then when she found him, she's brought back up what he'd said about, oh, you're a baker and your family, and tried to find the real person inside him.
So what would your family think of all this? And, you know, think about them.
That was ace.
And she basically convinced him, yeah.
She convinced him. We didn't realise she had it at the time. Because then Mac and Sarge had a massive fight, didn't they?
Yeah, because the other clever thing that happened, in that moment where the force field went down and stuff, when the other guy got his face burnt, she obviously whizzed in and left Mac a key. So then
that was right, yeah.
He realised, wait, I've got something in my hand. And it was like, I've got a key. So he was able to undo his handcuffs, and then he just sat there waiting. And then when the time was right, obviously it was like, I'm not handcuffed anymore, bitch. You know, like bang. And they had a big brawl and they were fighting and stuff.
Fight. He was just about. Did he not get to? He was just about to shoot Mac.
Yeah.
And Jacko turned up and said, "No, you're not."
Mm-hmm.
It's like he had a massive gun on, and Mac went, "Told ya."
Yeah, because he'd said to him, he echoed what Sarge had said to him a couple of episodes back, which was the whole, by the end of the day, I will blah blah. He said the same by the end of the day, I have a feeling that I'll be back in control of my ship. And Sarge was like, "Oh,
is that a cult saying, though, isn't it? Told ya."
Yeah.
Yeah. So when he did it, he obviously overpowered him, and he went, "Told ya."
Yeah.
And then they contained him, and then they decided, right, we've got to go on a rescue trip.
Yeah, that's right, because they were like, now we know Fitz and Simmons are there, we need to go and get them. And Jacko was still like about the mission and this, that, and the other, because Sarge had been shouting and screaming of like, we've come so close, I can't let her slip through my fingers this time, and it's like, this is the closest that I've got to taking her down, you can't take this away from me, and Jacko, remember the mission and stuff. So Jacko, even after, in light of everything, Jacko is still thinking about the mission, but they're like, look, that's not the mission. When mission is not for that. So they docked, didn't they? They went after the ship and they docked on the spaceship.
Big ship, yeah.
And they went in and they're like, look, this is not an infiltration. This is not anything other than a rescue mission.
Yeah, and he shot that guy. He said, what did I just tell you?
Yeah.
And the guy got back up again.
And then he's like, okay, I'll let you have that one.
And they did this singing, so they knew she was there, and Jacko knows who she is, so he went, she's here. So Yo-Yo saved Fitzsimmons. They were hiding in a cupboard, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and they were getting closed in on.
There was a big look from Mac. Mac and, what do you call it? He called him?
Turbo.
There's like, love. So Jacko and Davis were sent off after Azale.
Mm-hmm.
And they surrounded her, didn't they? And then 1 minute she was there, she was at some controls, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And then she was gone. Like,
And they were like, they couldn't find her anywhere.
And then they said about the truck, and he goes, I have an idea. And he obviously used their magic drawing thing they do.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was great, wasn't it? They're in the truck, and they heard somebody.
And they're like, all the ones inside the truck are like, what's that? And they're like, is it more Shrike? No, that's not Shrike. What is that? And then they all appeared, and it's like, there's nice reunion.
They were all in the truck, and it was great. And Bobo, Bobo!
Yeah, and then he's like, what's happening?
What's Bobo?
What's happening right now? What's happening?
Who are you? And then they also said, we've still got the bomb to think about. And Jacko said, don't worry about it. I'll sort it out. Bless him. And then he made another hole.
Yeah, Snowflake was like, what are you doing? And he's like, completing the mission.
And he made a hole, took the bomb, and the place he made the hole to appeared on her ship. And
then there was a big explosion.
Yeah.
But
then we had them all back in the. They weren't in the lighthouse. They were on the plane, weren't they? I think.
No, they were. It was late. It was much later. It was back at the lighthouse. Yeah.
Back at the lighthouse, and they're all happy to be back together.
Mm-hmm.
Daisy was matchmaking.
Yeah.
Davis. Now Davis. Now, I don't know if you thought this, but I did. You might have said nothing of it. Davis, okay, yeah, he looked tired, but I think he's not right.
I just thought he was drunk because he had they put the hat on him, and Piper was sort of like taking photographs and stuff.
I'm suspicious, so I'd be interested if that is what I'm thinking next week.
Okay, because I'm thinking something.
I don't think it was just. I don't think it was that. I think
I have a thought about something else, which we'll talk about in a moment, but it might be similar to what you're thinking. But anyway.
Then we had Deke and the grandparents, which was hilarious.
And he was saying about wanting to go to Scotland and learn about his ancestors and all of this kind of stuff.
Showed him all his, look at my empire, look at my business. And then Fitz was quite interested, wasn't he? He's like,
yeah.
Oh. Mm-hmm. No, he's like, done well for himself. He said, where's that Bobo name come from? He goes, you asked him to call it.
Yeah. Oh, that was so funny.
We had Snow and Deke, and then we saw Sarge come through, and she was really angry that they still had him.
Mm-hmm.
And then Daisy was having a go at Deke, and he goes, "Oh, you're jealous. I know you had your chance, and all this stuff."
Like,
and she goes,
"She's a criminal. She's a serial killer.
Lock her up, take her away."
And then you had all these weird moments where time clearly passed a little bit because he was going to visit her and bringing her a television and all of this kind of stuff. Yeah.
But one thing I'm intrigued about, there was a letter for Daisy. So was that from Coulson?
I don't know. Maybe.
So it died. So that was relevant. So there's a letter for Daisy. I got the big TV, and then Mac and Yo-Yo making up.
Yeah.
And then
we had the "We'll continue," and we had Sarge in his cell. And then May came to see him.
Yeah.
And he started sort of being sarcastic and saying stuff. And she didn't say anything, did she? She didn't speak.
No.
She just stood there while he was going, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Whatever he was saying. I don't know what he was saying now. It wasn't really important. No. It was more just provocation, sort of sarcasm. And she pulled a gun out. And she
shot him a couple of times, didn't she?
And then she shot him in the head.
And then she went straight to him.
Yep.
Closer, and then we saw it aiming at his head, and then all we heard was the bang, didn't we?
And it went to black, yeah.
It's like, do you see why I sent you that message now?
So this is my thought. So this is what I think you might be going down the path of with Davis is, I don't think, well, it is May, but I don't think it's May. I think Izelle is she's either took on May's appearance, and maybe that was a clue earlier on in the episode when she said about what face are you wearing now, it was because they can maybe change their appearance, and she has taken on May's appearance, and it's not May that killed him, it's Izelle that killed him, or she's somehow inside May and is controlling her.
But I think she's come in via Davis.
So do you think that? Okay, so then what
That's
about
why
May?
he might be dead now for all we know. No, but what I meant is May wasn't on the plane. Davis was.
Yeah.
Davis got quite close to her, so whatever she did, she might have got in him, and then once she got back to there where they all got back together.
Yeah.
She's now gone into May and made it so she can make sure she kills him.
So she's gone from like one body to the next.
Yeah, because she had obviously one was on the ship, May was in the truck.
Yeah.
So she couldn't have got to May then, could she? So she had to go via someone else that was on the truck, on the spaceship, to get to May, didn't she? Maybe. Ooh, who knows?
Interesting thing, based on us theorising here, is if we use our theorising and we try and look at the name of the next episode and see if we'll find out when we watch it that we were right. The next episode's called Leap. Now, could that be leap as in like leaping from body to body? Like that kind,
yeah, because
like...
She implied, what body are you in now? So maybe they can do that. Maybe they can do this sort of shape-shifting thing.
Yeah. Because it just seems like quite abrupt, doesn't it? It's like quite an abrupt ending to have first, like most of this season has been this build-up.
She said she wanted to kill him as well, didn't she?
Yeah.
And he wanted to kill her, so...
And you've had all this build-up, like, what is this guy that looks like Coulson? What's all going on there? Who is this Iselle person and all this stuff? Then you have this 2-part episode, and by the end of it, seemingly, they're both dead and gone. And you go, but we've still got 4 more episodes to go yet.
Yeah, but she didn't, because she just transported out of there.
Well, we don't know what happened to her.
But that's how it looked like. She was at some controls. They were coming up towards where she was. The next thing she'd gone. So I think she transported out of there. But then I'm suspicious about the Davis thing. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe, like say, he's tired. But then obviously now you just give me a pause for thought. Now with the May, did something possess May to do that, rather than just the fact he had Coulson's face?
As much as May was angry and upset and everything about this guy appearing to look like Coulson, I don't believe she would go in there and murder him in cold blood like that.
No.
That's not within her,
is it? Yeah.
Character.
So I can't wait till next week. Well, it'll be in a couple of days.
Yeah. But like I said, we've got 4 episodes left, so we've still got potentially what else is going to happen with these 2 characters, with Sarge and Iselle, but we've also got whatever else is going to happen at the tail end of the stuff to do with the Chromicon.
Yeah.
Because that's clearly going to come into play.
Yeah, because he didn't come to the rescue. I had a feeling it was going to be him.
And you've also got the bounty hunters are still out there, and they were obviously going to go into the memory device and stuff. So that's all got to still...
There's quite a lot to happen over the next few episodes,
yeah.
Because although it looked like, that's the end of that, no, it isn't.
Yeah.
Yes, all good.
All good. So there we go. So a pretty decent week, actually. A pretty solid week of programmes, all in all.
I think so.
Not too bad at all. So yeah, that was good.
Too shabby at all.
So that'll do it then, guys. So I would just reiterate what I said at the top of the show, which is if you've enjoyed this today, then please leave a like. Please hit that thumbs up button. Please go down below and leave comments for us and give us feedback and your thoughts and your theories and everything on these programmes. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And also go in the description box for the link to my Twitter to come and chat and follow me on there. And also my donation mediums if you should feel kind enough to drop me a few pennies to help support the future of the podcast and the future of this channel, then I'd be hugely grateful. And equally, there's no pressure to either. So there we go. So yes, same time again next week, Mother.
Yes, indeed. Geek Mum.
Yes.
Mama.
Geek Mama.
Geek Mamma Mia.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed.
So we will reconvene here again, same time next week.
Yes.
Okay, you all take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, 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 bye.